Members, may I call the meeting to order? This is the Finance Committee. Please take your seat. All right. We have to end by 5:30 today, and if need be, I can extend the meeting by 15 minutes. May I remind members that if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in any of the item on the agenda today, please disclose the nature of the interest involved in accordance with ROP 83A before you speak on the item. And may I draw members' attention to ROP 84 on voting arrangements on matters where you have a direct pecuniary interest. Now, I'd like to declare interest. I am a non-executive director of the Wolf Holdings. The first item is FCR 2022-23-58. Members are invited to approve recommendations of the Establishment Subcommittee made at its meeting on the 16th of November 2022 is item EC 2022-23-13 for internal organization of the Environment Bureau of the Environment and Ecology Bureau and the EPD with effect from the 1st of January 2023 or with immediate effect upon approval of the Finance Committee, whichever is the later, to strengthen climate change actions, waste reduction and recycling, various environment-led related tasks. The Environment Bureau and the EPD will have to be segregated to handle managed policy formation and execution of duties respectively. The ESE doesn't recommend a discussion of this item, and we do not have a request from no less than 3 members of the committee for a discussion, so we will not discuss this paper again. I now put FCR 2022-23-58 to the vote. For those in favor, please raise their hands. All right, thank you. Those against? We have none. The majority of members voting are in favor, so the paper is passed. Next, FCR 2022-23-59. Members are invited to approve the following proposed changes to the 2022-23 estimates to implement the reorganization of the Environment Branch of the Environment and Ecology Bureau and the Environmental Protection Department. A, the change in the title of the Controlling Officer of Head 44 Environmental Protection Department from the Permanent Secretary for Environment and Ecology Environment or Director of Environmental Protection to the Director of Environmental Protection. B, the creation of one capital account subhead for minor plant, vehicles, and equipment block votes under Head 137, Government Secretariat, Environment and Ecology Bureau, Environment Branch. C, the consequential transfer of non-recurrent commitments for Countryside Conservation Office, Green Tech Fund, and New Energy Transport Fund from Head 44, Environmental Protection Department to Head 137, Government Secretariat, Environment and Ecology Bureau, Environment Branch. D, a supplementary provision of $153,044,000 to Head 137, Government Secretariat, Environment and Ecology Bureau, Environment Branch. And E, the increase in the establishment ceiling expressed in terms of total notional annual midpoint salary value of Head 137, Government Secretariat, Environment and Ecology Bureau, Environment Branch, from $37,430,000 by $190,229,000 to $157,642,000. The Bureau, the Environmental Affairs Bureau was consulted on on the 24th of October 2022 on the reorganization proposals. Present today we have Mr. Jie Jinhua, Secretary for Environment and Ecology, Ms. Janice Jie, Permanent Secretary for Environment and Ecology, Environment, and their team. Ms. Elizabeth Quat, Chairman of the Ye panel, will report to us the discussion of the panel. Thank you. The Ye panel at its meeting dated the 24th of October 2022 discussed the proposed internal organization of the Environment Branch and the EPD. In general, members supported the proposal and noted that the administration had to transfer all non-directorate posts of the Bureau and has to adjust the establishment ceiling and had 22 and the approved estimates of 2022-23 for the heads will have to be adjusted. Now we urge the administration to work on waste reduction and expedite its measures to turn waste to energy so that we can achieve zero landfill target as soon as possible. And the administration should move towards low carbon development and also green procurement so that we can tackle climate changes so that we can achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Two members have pressed the request to speak button. And members who are interested to speak, please press the button as soon as possible. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok, 5 minutes each. Thank you. We've just passed a recommendation from the ESC on internal reorganization of the Environment Bureau and the EPD. Now, this item is something that follows naturally. Since the last paper was approved, we have to approve the financial arrangements as well. For some, we have to provide supplementary provision, and some we are just wiring the funds from one head to another. So I will support this paper naturally. Let me reiterate once again that in this reorganization exercise, now it's actually separating the Bureau and the department. The PS of EEB in the past was also the Director of Environmental Protection, but now we have two separate positions. That is for better division of labor. The Bureau is responsible for policy formulation and the department execution of policies and taking forward specific measures. I'm sure members of the public know the work of EPD well. This segregation doesn't mean that there will be any change in policies in the future. It's just a division of labor, and better coordination is needed. I very much hope that on this important matter of environmental protection, we can carry out specific and concrete measures. Part of the work of FEHD will be taken up by this Bureau. We hope that members of the public can have better services on all fronts. I just speak to support the paper. I have no further questions because we have had ample discussion of the proposal already. And a response from the Secretary in relation to the comments by Mr. Low. I thank Mr. Low for his suggestions. After separating the Bureau and the department, the Bureau will be in a better position to grasp technical issues. We have over 160 posts in the Bureau. In the past, the Bureau might not have a very good grasp of relevant policies, but this will no longer be the same after the change. I thank Mr. Low for his support. Mr. Tony Jie. Thank you, Chair. Reorganization of the Bureau and the department involves a net addition of 7 directorate posts. At the year panel and ESC meeting, I already expressed my views and I will not repeat them. We have this item because of staffing proposals already agreed to. So we have to adjust the relative estimates for the Bureau and the branch, respectively. Now, can the Secretary take this opportunity to clarify to avoid misunderstanding by the media or the public? Parent 9 says that the administration will give a supplementary provision of $152 million for the Bureau, and this will be offset by the same amount under Head 44 EPD. The proposal is therefore cost neutral. Technically speaking, you may say so, but then I think this is a bit misleading. Members of the public or the media may think that the staffing proposal or reorganization doesn't cost us anything extra. I don't know whether my understanding is correct, because in the budget, provision was already made for the extra manpower required for the reorganization, and therefore we don't need extra funding approval from the Council. In fact, 7 directorate posts have been added, each costing over $100,000 to $200,000. It is impossible that taxpayers don't have to pay extra for that. Because the presentation here may mislead the public. My understanding is provision was already made in the estimates. So am I correct? Would you care to comment or make a clarification?
In terms of the figures, I will invite my colleague Millie to tell us more. Deputy Secretary, I thank Mr. Tse for his question. This is about 7 directorate posts. At the establishment subcommittee meeting, we explained how it worked. The financial implication will be roughly $16.68 million. That's the total cost. Now, why are we saying it's cost neutral in the paper here? We're saying that through the reorganization, there will be a revision to the 2022 to 23 budget. So this is not about the 2023 to 24. Everything in this paper is about the current year's budget. This proposal was supposed to take effect in January. This means supplementary provision is needed for 3 months. 167 officers will be transferred to the Environment branch of the Bureau as a result of the reorganization. For the new Energy Transport Fund, for example, this will be reassigned under the Environment branch. That's why there will be $150 million in supplementary provision for the Environment branch of the Environment and Ecology Bureau. But the same amount will be offset under the Environmental Protection Department. So there is no increase in provision for the 2022 to 23 budget. A member may wonder about the net increase of 7 directorate posts. In 2022 to 23, our existing budget will be able to absorb the expenses concerning the 7 directorate posts for just the 3 months. That means you have some money left over for this financial year. Mr. Tony Tse. The paper here, it says it's cost neutral. People would think that extra expenses are needed when you create more posts. So the reason is that you earmarked money for this beforehand and you have money left, so you can use that money to absorb the staff costs. So Mr. Tse was saying there is an increase in expenses, but the government can absorb those expenses with the existing budget, and there's no need to apply for additional funding to LegCo. This is the point here. Mr. Chen Xiuhong. Under this reorganization exercise, the government proposes to create a permanent post under the Environment Bureau or Environment and Ecology Bureau. I support this splitting of function between the Environment branch of the EEB and the Environmental Protection Department. So the official at the Bureau can focus on policy formulation like climate change, whereas the Director of Environmental Protection can focus on the execution of measures. The new post of Director of Environmental Protection will be a professional from the area. So we will not have a situation where you have a lay person being in charge of a professional department. Can the government tell us in greater detail? In 2005, when the EPD and the Environment Bureau was merged, back then the government justified that move by saying that the merger would create synergy and raise efficiency. So now the government wants to split the EPD and the Environment branch of the EEB. How can we achieve synergy? And can the government tell us how this can avoid a situation where you have different parties each working in its own silo? I thank the member for his question. More than 10 years ago, the merger happened partly because environmental protection involved technically complex issues. Splitting the policy formulation and the execution led to communication problems. So the thinking back then was that through this merger, administrative officers got to work alongside professional staff officers, and we saw there was synergy in the merger. But then after all these years, under the Environment branch of the Environment and Ecology Bureau, the work is covering an ever-increasing range of work. For the permanent secretary for Environment and Ecology in charge of environment, this officer is in charge of ever more work, and the work is becoming overwhelming. When the officers are too caught up with the execution and addressing pressing issues, and there's not enough attention to policy formulation. So we want to split the functions, policy formulation on the one hand and execution on the other. The member also raised a point about communication and synergy. So for this reorganization exercise under the EPD, we will be reassigning more than 160 professional grade officers to the EEB, that is the Environment branch of the EEB, so that the Bureau will also retain some of the professional expertise, and that will also facilitate policy formulation at the level of the EEB. This will help us keep the synergy, and we can split policy formulation and execution that will help us deliver better results. At the EPD, we need someone with a professional background to serve as the Director of Environmental Protection. This will also create a more credible director in professional matters. Any follow-up questions from you, Mr. Chen? Next, Mr. Lee Chen-kang. The paper shows that more work will be done and more projects will need funding. I support this proposal. In the 20th Party Congress report, there are goals about carbon neutrality and peak carbon, and there's a need for us to achieve low carbon transformation. On matters such as new energy and low carbon transformation, there is need work ahead for us. We had a merged structure. Can the government take this opportunity to explain why there is a necessity for this splitting of functions between the Bureau and the department? Will that contribute to enforcement? The people suffer from noise problems, light pollution, and dumping of construction waste. This is the work for the EPD. Can we expect better results? In enclosure 3, on page 11 of the Chinese paper, under subhead 801, there is this part about the electricity tariff alleviation scheme. Can something be done about the power bills? The bills are going up, and that's making life hard for people. Can the Bureau tell us more about the electricity tariff alleviation scheme? Millie, my colleague, will tell us more about the tariff. As we are covering an increasing range of work, the official in charge starts to struggle to cope with so much work. So we want an official to be dedicated and focused on policy formulation, and those in charge of enforcement can focus on the nitty-gritty, the execution of measures. So splitting the functions will lead to improvement in the work. The department in charge of enforcement will no longer have to worry about the policy formulation and can focus on the execution and ways to do better. So, for example, how do we better address noise pollution? That's one example. The EPD will attach importance to this area. So after splitting the functions, the EPD will be able to deliver better results. And for policy formulation, better policies can be delivered, but the results may not come immediately. It will only be shown in the long term. Deputy Secretary. In enclosure 2, page 3, electricity charges relief scheme. No reassignment is needed for this item. This is always under the budget of the Environment branch of the EEB. This scheme started in 2019. The scheme was launched to help household users as we gradually switch to clean energy sources. And as you're aware, power companies were asked to switch from coal to natural gas in power generation. During the transaction, more capital costs were incurred that may lead to pressure for higher electricity tariffs. So there was this provision of $8.7 billion. It's a 5-year support scheme. For residential household users, they get monthly relief of $50. That scheme is still in effect today. Towards the end of next year, the relief scheme of $8.7 will wrap up. Mr. Lee. Chair, for the electricity charges relief scheme, there's a monthly relief of $50. Does that also cover small, medium, and micro enterprises? The government said the relief scheme would end at some point. Given the hike in power bills, will the scheme be continued to benefit members of the public? Can we switch on the microphone for Mr. Lee Chang-kang? Chair, my second point, to follow up, Mr. Lee, if you have a new question, you can put the questions in the next round. Secretary, would you have new measures or step up the existing scheme to help members of the public? As the Deputy Secretary was saying, the relief scheme will continue towards the end of next year. We will review how it works and see what to do. And maybe something can be done under the budget. Next, Ms. Carmen Khan, 2 questions from me. First, we approved the resources for the post of Director of Environmental Protection. Has the recruitment started for the post of Environmental Protection? When can we see the result of this splitting of responsibilities? Now, for 2023, we will see some of the procedures streamlined. The permanent secretary will be working on the policy. What will be some policy priority areas in the policy formulation?
Secretary, thank you, Ms. Khan, for your question. And when it comes to the candidate for the post of Director of Environmental Protection, we have established procedures for identifying the right person. We'll first look at whether we can do it internally. Understand that with the FC's approval, they will convene a selection board as soon as possible to identify the right candidate from the professional grades to fill the post. I believe after the selection committee or the selection board, the right candidate will be identified in 3 to 4 months' time. Prior to that, we can arrange acting arrangements. That is a usual practice. Thank you. P.S. Thank you, Ms. Khan, for your question. Our policy objective in 2023, according to the policy address, is to implement a few full blueprints, including carbon reduction. By 2030, we would like to lower carbon emission and very proactive. We will promote recycling and waste reduction, and we will also use green technology, including new energy and development of electrical vehicles. These will be our foci for the future, and we will implement the municipal waste charging scheme as soon as possible. These are our long-standing objectives. And then with the implementation of the new organization structure, we will expedite legislative amendments. Now, for household renovation noise and also treatment, waste treatment, or sewage treatment, we want to expedite our legislative amendment exercise and also carry out strategic mitigation measures. Ms. Khan, thank you, PS, for your answer. We look forward to something concrete from your bureau. Mr. Charles Siu Chung, thank you. In principle, I support the reorganization proposal. But I'd like to put a question to the Secretary. That is the question about Northwest landfill, anti-Northwest landfill. The odor there is a nuisance to the community. Residents in Shenzhen and Luowu are subject to the nuisance caused by the odor. Are you going to improve the situation? will you enhance monitoring of the operator of the landfill, or will you provide more funding so that they can treat waste better to mitigate odor? And for IPARC 2, the incineration project, we were told that it would only be commissioned in 2030. And then the anti-northeast landfill can only be decommissioned after this incinerator is completed. Can you expedite the construction of the incinerator, please? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chow, for your question. With regard to odor from northeast anti-landfill, yes, we in fact attach a lot of significance to that. We have written twice to the contractor, the headquarters in France of the contractor, raising our concern to the company. So we will very closely monitor the situation. And with the relevant authorities for the environment and ecology in Shenzhen, we have been in touch and we have introduced a number of mitigation measures, and we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to improve the control of odor. A good monitoring mechanism is important. So together with the Shenzhen Provincial Environment and Ecology authorities, we are discussing a monitoring plan to monitor the issues related to odor and wastewater. So even after spending money and energy to improve the situation, we want to ensure that we can achieve real effect. After splitting of the Bureau and the department, I'm sure the management will be able to focus on implementation and monitoring, and things will get better. As regard the second incinerator, we have identified a location in Zhangzhou of Tumun, and some members have visited the site already. Following our public works project, the incinerator can be commissioned before 2032. But 2032 is indeed very far away, and I've urged my colleagues to see whether we can have new ways, such as by means of public-private partnership, we can expedite the works. My colleagues are conducting a study, and when we have new proposals, we can get back to the EA panel. So you're not able to give us a timetable, right? Ms. Carmen Can. I'd like to ask a supplementary question. The PS mentioned that they would focus on legislative amendments. I'd like to know whether that would include the EIA Environmental Impact Assessment Ordinance, while the relevant subleg can be enacted by negative vetting. The administration must take the initiative to amend the relevant legislation so that the time for conducting EIAs can be shortened when it comes to new development. And the FS also mentioned municipal solid waste charging scheme will be implemented faster. I'd like to know whether you have any timetable in mind. PS. Thank you, Ms. Khan, for your questions. Amendments to the EIA-related legislation, it will be introduced to the Council very soon. Come the next EA panel meeting, we will brief members on. In fact, we've been to the EA panel already. As said by Ms. Khan, the amendment will be done in a negative vetting arrangement. Because we have gone through many rounds of consultation, I'm sure the legislation can be put in place very soon. and we have devoted time and resources to set up a central data bank. Hopefully, we'll be able to enhance the methodology of EIAs. We are confident that with this in place, the time required for EIAs will be greatly reduced. And our target is to have it done in the first half of 2023. As for municipal solid waste charging scheme, we understand that members are eager to know the implementation timetable. We hope that we can start it in the latter half of 2023. While it still takes time to prepare the garbage bags, etc., we are proceeding very proactively. We encourage members of the public to recycle and recover waste, and that includes kitchen waste. Hopefully, before the charging scheme starts, there can be various facilities, and members of the public have the habit of recovering kitchen waste or food waste that will lower the impact of the scheme. Thank you. Thank you. If there are no further questions, I will put this item to the vote. For those in favor of FCR 2022-23-59, please raise their hands. Yes, thank you. Those against? We have none. The majority of members voting on this item are in favor of the proposal. The proposal is passed. And may I remind members that the next meeting of the FC will be held on the 16th of December. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance.